Joining me now is another person who was at the Capitol on January 6th and fought to protect our democracy and nation from that very real threat. The Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands is a member of the House Judiciary Committee. She serves on the House Select Committee on the weaponization of the federal government. She also served as a House manager helping prosecute the case against Donald Trump in his second impeachment trial. Representative Plaskett, it's good to see you again. You and I have talked many, many times long before these days, but since then. And one of the roles you played as an impeachment manager was to walk us through some of what I just showed our viewers. Walk us through exactly what happened that day from every angle. You've seen every shot of this. You've seen every video camera. And Eugene Goodman tells a lot of the story here. There was a mob that was destined to attack the Capitol and invoke violence on people. And this man fought it in the moment. And I just mean symbolically, it is important for us to remember on this third anniversary that there are lots of people in America in different roles who did what this man did. But he put his life on the line.
Yes, thank you so much. And Happy New Year to you and to all your viewers. It is, a very moving day, January 6th. A very close college classmate sent a picture of me that 9 years ago on January 6th, I was sworn into Congress, thinking that Congress was going to be a place where individuals from both sides of the aisles work together, may not always agree philosophically on issues, but working towards the betterment of the people of the United States, to the American citizens. And, I stand as a beacon for the world. And how far have we fallen in the 3 years, or even before that, with the culmination of hatred and division in the election of Donald Trump, and then him calling those individuals through their frustrations, their bigotry, their racism, their hatred, to descend on the Capitol and try and overthrow our democracy. Goodwin stands as a symbol of those who put their life on the line. I also, Ali, think about the other video that I showed during that time of the staffers who were huddled, young people huddled into a room as people were banging on the door trying to get in. These are 20-year-old, 30-year-olds who give up lucrative jobs other places. Government doesn't pay that much, and do what they can because they believe in this country. And to have their lives threatened, or other members, I think about my colleagues who were up in the gallery. Some of them still have real mental issues, emotional issues from that day, as they were left up there because there was no easy access, no secret access to get them out there. And they had to wait and wade through people that the Capitol Police were holding down at gunpoint so that they could get through and get to safety. Those are the things that happened on January 6th. And what is absolutely infuriating, Ali, is those individuals who say it was not what it was the attempted overthrow of this country, the attempted throwing off of all of our rules and our norms, which are here to protect us. How many people from the civil rights movement followed the law and fought peaceably through the courts, through other systems, through demonstration for what they want? And for those individuals to think that they can do whatever they want because they don't like the outcome of decisions is absolutely untenable in this republic that we live in.
One of the points you've made as somebody who we relied upon to see all these videos and talk to these witnesses, and as you and I talked about the January 6th committee, one of the points you made is that we don't need more video. We don't need any more witnesses. We've all got two eyes. We've seen everything we need to see. You said we need more senators with spines, not more witnesses. And that still stands, right? We need more elected politicians who will take the right decisions. We have all the evidence in the world. If 25% of Americans still don't believe what happened on January 6th or don't believe Donald Trump was, whatever the numbers are, we can't help them. What we can do is have our decision makers like you and your colleagues, the elected decision makers in this country, make the right decisions.
Yes, I mean, during the trial, I was the only person in the impeachment team and one of the few Democrats who actually served in a Republican administration, who was at one point a registered Republican before I turned and looked around and saw that the Republican Party had left me and I was no longer a member of the party in terms of where they were going to the right. And I remember, it's a strange feeling, Ali, if you've been a courtroom lawyer, to actually talk to witnesses, to talk to the jurors while you are presenting your case. But that's what we did. And I can recall going over to Republican senators, some of whom I actually worked for on the House side as a staffer in many years before, and saying, what do you think? And they're like, you've made your case. And saying, so you're going to vote with us? And they're like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And to think, Ali, that we would not be where we are today if they had done that. My plea to them was vote to convict him. We need 2/3 to convict him, but we only need a majority after that conviction to disqualify him from ever being able to run again. And we can do that. We will do that if you give us the votes to convict. But they were unwilling and afraid of the base, afraid of Donald Trump to do that. And we are where we are now. And they continue to be. Congressman, you have never been. Congresswoman, thank you for the work that you've done. Thanks always for being a friend to our show.